So next up is a discussion on data analytics to be moderated by Greg Tarr from Cross Pacific Capital. There'll be a break of about 5 to 10 minutes just immediately after this discussion. So Greg.
Thank you so much for the kind introduction, and thank you everybody for coming today. Really appreciate it. I'd like to introduce my fireside chat guest here today. Yale is very inspirational for me because I use LinkedIn 3 hours a night, is what my wife tells me. And why don't I let Yale introduce herself and talk a little bit about her role at LinkedIn and what she does.
Sure. Good to be here and to see you all. I'm a data scientist at LinkedIn. I lead the mobile data science team there, and our team looks at understanding and increasing the mobile member base engagement as we increase our global member base, making sure that our products are most appealing and most delightful to our members, wherever they work and whatever they do.
That's great. And tell us a little bit about, let's see if we have this mic working, or there we go. Tell us a little bit about how you're using data at LinkedIn. As you know, the data chief, if you will, for mobile, how do you leverage all these data sets?
Sure. Well, let me maybe describe a little bit which data we use, and then I'll describe how we use it, because LinkedIn is in fact a very data-driven company. So the data sets that we have, first of all, LinkedIn has over 220 million public profiles of our members. Right? And so we have profile information that describes who you are, where you've worked, where you've studied, and a variety of other aspects of your professional self. Then we also have the ways in which our members engage on the website. So what they're reading, what they're clicking on, what kinds of interactions and what kinds of products they're touching. And then the third is the social graph, right? So how all of these 200 million members are interconnected with one another. And so that's the data sets that we use, and we use it in a variety of ways. So LinkedIn is a heaven for a data scientist like myself, because it's a very, very data-driven company in the sense that we use it operationally for understanding our business. So every day, every week, we review our success metrics, and whether that's growth and how our member base is growing in different regions of the world, whether that's engagement, how our members are using the different products that we offer. We look at this in a variety of different slices. We look at which segments of industries we're growing in and how those people are engaging. We look at student populations and how that's increasing over the years. So we look at all of these dimensions and really monitor them on a daily and weekly basis.
And a question for you, Yale, in terms of the products, how does the data impact the products? Because you get to see all the data coming in from around the world, and it sort of informs you on what kind of changes that you might recommend to the product group. Could you give us some exampple of how that might work and what you've done?
Yeah, definitely. So the first description I gave was kind of how we use it at the high level for the company, right, to track the business. We also use it working with our product managers and our product partners and really defining our products using the data. And so there are many points at which we do that. First of all, product inception. So when we set out to launch a new feature or a new product, we see how our data can be used and leveraged to inform that. So an example of that is when we were setting out to create our first iPad app in the mobile team. We looked at how people are using the iPad to access the web and how that's different from desktop. And it turns out that desktop users typically have a 9 to 5 kind of a profile, right, where it spikes up in the morning, kind of dies down around lunch, continues during the day, and dies down at 5 p.m. Whereas on the iPad device, there's actually a spike 6 to 8 a.m. in the morning, dies down, and then another spike around 6 to 10 p.m., so longer. So that really informed a different way of designing our iPad app around content consumption and a rich stream. Very different from how phone users, for example, are using all throughout the day short bursts of sessions. And you can imagine your own usage, right? Using the phone all throughout the day, different than iPad, different than desktop. And so we use that to inform how we're going to design the product, what is the center stage of the product, and what is that going to display to our members. And then the next way that we use it is by constantly iterating on that. So when we roll out, for example, the iPad app, we say, okay, is that play on content consumption actually working for us, right? are people actually engaging in this way, and how do we want to iterate?
And is there any difference between the traditional desktop experience and the mobile experience in terms of either users, how it's used, and so forth?
Yeah, so we look at all of these trends. I mean, it's interesting. It's not even just desktop and mobile. So, like I said, there are different hours of the day that these devices are used. There's also differences even if you just look at within mobile. So, Android users and iPhone users, right? Different characteristics. Once you start getting to the mobile space, it's a highly multidimensional space. So you have different price points for these different devices, which will then lead to different demographics, right? And these different demographics will have different use cases based on the region of the world, the type of job function they have. So all of those interplays are things that we look at and then use that data to inform how we create the products.
And so let me ask you on the new mobile product, where I'm spending a lot of time, what's some of the initial feedback that you're getting? It's been a couple weeks,
Few
few
weeks,
weeks
yeah.
from the new release. What are you hearing from the general population, and what can we expect in the future?
Yeah. So actually, this was a great example of data-driven product design. So when we decided that we were going to redesign our new phone app for Android and iPhone, we took a look at what are the ways in which people are using it and how can we make that better. And so one of the things that you may hopefully are all using and liking is personalized navigation. So first of all, what we looked at is to understand how are the flows, how are people basically transitioning through different sections of the app. And if you see that people are moving from the landing page all the way to the next page and to the next page, and everyone is going through the same flow to get to point C, bubble that up to the top so that you can have a more efficient flow for our members. Again, with the desire of making the world's professionals more successful and productive, which means making their time spent more efficiently. And so we changed a lot of the flows to make them much more frictionless and efficient based on what we were seeing. The other thing we did is personalize the navigation. So basically based on people's usage, personalized to your own usage on mobile as well as on desktop, because we look at the interplays between those devices, understanding how you, for example, are using, and if you're a heavy groups user or heavy company follower, we'll surface those to you in your navigation. And so still early signs, but what we're seeing is that people love it. So we have 4-star app rating. We have significant increase in engagement. We have, as an example, about 40% increase in likes and comments per unique user that is doing these actions. So really significant increases.
Now, I'd like to ask a couple questions that might help some folks in the audience here. We have a lot of entrepreneurs. Can I just see a quick hand? How many entrepreneurs are in the audience? Raise your hands. All right, so roughly, that looks about 60%. You're the data scientist. Was that about 60%? Okay.
62.
So 62% according to our data scientists. Tell us a little bit, the entrepreneurs in the room, many of them have to hire data scientists to get their startup companies going. We have a lot of data-driven folks here. So I want to ask some questions to get some advice out to the audience. First of all, Ed, in your role, how do you collaborate with the engineering team, with the product team, given that you're really on the data science team? People have strong opinions, and how does it get done?
Yeah.
How do you guys collaborate?
Yeah, so very heavily and in a very embedded model. So I think different companies will structure data science teams in different ways, whether that's embedded in product, embedded in engineering as its own separate function. I think the real point and the point is that it has to be an embedded model where the teams are interacting very closely together. So that's really critical kind of in a couple of places along the way. First of all, again, product inception. I think using data, the data that you have to make informed decisions about how to design the product, and that'll be working, giving data sort of at the fingertips of the product manager to be able to design the product around what you're seeing from the data. It's also important to collaborate all the way through sort of the data flow or the data pipeline. So besides just making a rich, delightful experience for your members in terms of the product and the interface, making sure that actually you're able to collect the data that'll enable you to track how well you're doing and how you're performing against the success metrics that you've defined. Right? And so working in close collaboration with the engineering teams to ensure that actually the data that you'd like to track is in fact tracking and kind of flowing through all the way through, whether it's a data warehouse, whether you're using Hadoop, but making sure that there's really close collaboration and an ability to quickly iterate, right? So to to look at the data, to make decisions, and to improve the product in a very rapid cycle. I think that is what will lead to success.
And real quickly, are you pushing new releases out every 2 weeks? Is that your general, what we've seen, habits?
Yeah, so we have different cycles for desktop and mobile. For mobile, we're moving into a cycle of kind of a train to ship every 2 weeks. You know, there's going through the App Store submission process, and that's different for Apple and Google. But
And so for our entrepreneurs in the crowd, are there any additional lessons learned you can share of what's worked, what hasn't worked in terms of either, data science in general or collaborating with teams? What lessons can you share with us that might be valuable for the entrepreneurs?
Yeah. So I think a couple. So first of all, ensuring that there's a culture of collaboration around this, around data usage, around kind of product design, ensuring that there's a certain standards, right? So especially as you're developing, one of the things that we see, with the mobile space is that it is so fragmented, constantly new, changes being made, new operating systems, not so frequently, but new devices coming out, right? So the ability to leverage learnings from one to the other, whether that's from phones to tablets, from tablets to desktops, once you standardize a certain layer of your infrastructure and standardize the data that you're collecting, you can then leverage learnings in a faster way. And so having teams, if you have teams developing different aspects of that, if you have a team developing Android and a team developing iPhone, sharing learnings and sharing the infrastructure, sharing the data layers or the standardization of it can really be helpful to then be able to have your data scientists look at the data in a cohesive way to make decisions. A lot of what we see is actually these interplays of these different devices. I can give you a fun stat on what we're seeing with iPads, for example. When we set out to design the iPad, we looked at how people are holding the device, right? Majority of us are probably holding the device in landscape mode, and that's in fact what we saw, right? So 35% are holding in portrait mode. And then when we designed around that. So we designed around the majority using landscape mode. But then iPad minis come out, right? And so you want to constantly monitor trends, again, especially in this mobile space. Well, it turns out that if you're creating an app that's going to be installed on the iPad and on the iPad mini, but on the iPad mini we're seeing that actually 65% are holding it in portrait mode, that's going to change the way you design, right? And so you want to be constantly looking at that and iterating on that and having the ability to take those learnings from the different devices from the different teams.
And so another question, again, for the entrepreneurs in the crowd who have to actually go out and recruit data scientists. There's a lot of people claiming to be data scientists that maybe are just data analysts. Maybe you could give us sort of your background, share with us what does it take to be a successful data scientist? And the second part of the question might be, how should you recruit a data scientist? Because I know I myself, with 5 portfolio companies, am spending an awful lot of time recruiting.
Yes.
So what does it take? What kind of backgrounds? Maybe you can share your background as a little bit of bioinformatics, is my understanding.
Yeah. Yes, so my background is in computational biology, and then I did a master's in bioinformatics and essentially in yeast transcriptional regulation, so very basic research, and then moved on to more applied clinical work, looking at doing text mining and natural language processing to extract information about personalized medicine, so how genetic variation impacts drug response. So I think the key there was really taking disparate data sources and integrating them, and looking for signals in the data, information extraction, information integration. So that's my personal background. And I was drawn to LinkedIn because of our mission, because of our opportunity to really impact so many professionals around the world, billions of people professionally, potentially. And then the amazing data science team there. And so what we have, I think, at LinkedIn is really special, and this is kind of what we look for, is to do data science, you kind of have to look at a whole spectrum of what the role is, and ideally a person that has all of these, right? And so first of all, it'll be the ability to understand a kind of vague question and define that question more thoroughly and put a framework around it and understand what question are you actually trying to answer, and more specifically, what action will the answer to this question enable. All right, so somebody who is able to take a business question or a product question and really frame it into a more rigorous question that they'll then be able to answer. And the next step is being able to be technically savvy and understand how to pull the data, what data is important, what data is not important, and be able to look at that data and analyze it, and then effectively communicate the results of what the findings are to make business or product decisions. And so what we look for is a mix of curiosity, sort of product instincts, ability to communicate effectively, that's key, and of course, technical expertise in querying the data and analyzing the data and understanding what the data is telling you.
So when you talk about technical background, I think some folks here may have technical undergraduate degrees and they may want to pursue a master's degree, or they may be evaluating hiring people. Are we saying that an undergraduate degree in a variety of technical subjects is okay, whether it's physics, statistics, electrical engineering, computer science, that's all okay? And then maybe some kind of a master's degree in perhaps data mining, et cetera? What are you looking for when you're looking for people?
Yeah, so what we end up finding is that all of what you said is true. So yes, that is what we look for. What we see is that especially when we have a mix, if you're starting with one data scientist, perhaps it's different. But once you have a few, seeing this mix of different backgrounds is really helpful. So somebody coming in with a physics degree will have different techniques that may be analogous to other techniques that are coming in from electrical engineering or from biomedical informatics or biostatistics. So we actually are seeing a variety of disciplines coming together to give this training where, somebody with a master's will have gone through this problem essentially of taking a very vague question and putting a framework around it and being able to pull the right data, look at the techniques that are out there, evaluate them, and then kind of effectively and efficiently implement them for the needs of whatever the business area that you're in. And so we see that a mix of different backgrounds is really applicable. The key is really this ability to understand the business sense, kind of the product sense of it, and communicating the results of the data, which ends up being very important.
Okay, so I'm going to ask one last question, and if we still have time, I'll try to take one quick question before our next panel comes on. But the question from my perspective, and a lot of folks out here, they're founders of companies, and they may not have ever worked with a data scientist in their entire life. And they may have 10 engineers on their team, and they have 2 product managers. Can you explain to us how we can successfully integrate a data scientist into the team of engineers who think they understand data scientists and product managers who also think they have it covered? Well, let's say we find a good data scientist. How would a small 15, 20-person startup company integrate properly?
Yeah. So I think the first kind of thing that I would say this person should do on day one is to understand what's most important to the company, right? Is it understanding the data that you already have collected and haven't yet utilized, right? And to that extent, do you want to grow your member base? Do you want to make your products more engaging? Do you want to address a churn issue, right, and have win back? So kind of what is the key piece where the data scientist can actually come in and impact the business, the product, right, the strategy. And once you have that, the next thing is, well, how do they get to the data to do that, right? And so whether it's partnership with the engineering team or partnership with the product managers to create specs to implement the data that you need to collect, or evaluating the right third-party tools to be able to collect the data that you need, right? These will be the next steps. But I think it's really about making sure that there is a great communication channel between both the executive team, between the product team, and between the engineering team to be able to inform that data scientist with what is the most important thing to be looking at. And then take it away.
That's great. So I think I have about 30 seconds left. If somebody wants to get a quick question in, we'll take one quick question. No comments, but a question. Anybody? Anybody not shy with a key question? Oh, we have a lady over here. Do you want to stand up and come a little closer? We'll take your question.
Yes, that's a good question.
Have you done anything ever that is opposite of what you see in the data?
Yeah. So I would say that whenever possible, we use the data to inform our decisions, right? But we also do entertain product hunches, and we also do take risks, right? And so we will make decisions either with less data or no data when needed. Yes, we do. I would say for the most part, our decisions and our strategies are very much centered around the data, I'd say 95% of the time. But yes, we have taken some risks that are very successful, without the data or with limited data. Yeah.
Very good. Thank you. With that, I'd like to thank Yale for joining us. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you.